Hey everybody, welcome to Listen Money Matters. The world is what you make it. If it does not fit, make alterations. My name is Matt and I'm here as always with Andrew. Andrew, how are you and what are you drinking?
Great, man. Great.
Yeah.
And I actually have an iced coffee Laura brought back from the
Where
local
from? Starbucks?
BWE. Nah, Starbucks. It's way too expensive, man.
Oh yeah?
Especially because of our guest on. I can't go with the fancy coffees today.
Now you have to go for the is that it's not that's a fancy coffee though you're drinking?
No. It was just like a local mom and pop shop, and it's actually the best coffee around.
Really?
Like real love was put in.
In Hoboken.
Yeah.
The best coffee in Hoboken.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know about around. I mean, I guess around you.
There's Orange in New York. They have strong coffee. My wife loves that.
I am drinking coffee as well. I have B&B, which is burlap and bean coffee. It's roasted in here in Philadelphia, and it's black and tan. And it's very good. And I'm quite happy with it. It's a little too early to start drinking beers, but we'll get to that soon enough. And so if you guys have catchphrases, like today's catchphrase is, the world is what you make it. If it does not fit, make alterations. That was sent in by our buddy, Daniel Merrill, at the Duke Daniel is his Twitter handle. And you can send those catchphrases in via Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @MoneyMattersMan. And
Matt will say anything.
Yes.
He has no shame.
I have no shame. Send me your worst. And speaking of men, we have a guest on the show today that I'm really excited to talk to. I want to introduce Mr. Money Mustache. Let me introduce him. Don't you jump in. You should hold your horses. Mr. Money Mustache, how are you, man?
What's up, guys? Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. You know, I woke up one morning a couple of weeks ago, and my brother wakes up for work. I work from home, and he says, "Oh, you guys should do a show about early retirement." I said, "Yeah, we're going to have Mr. Money Mustache on." He goes, "That's who I was reading." I'm like, "Okay, so perfect." He's like, "Oh, I want to hear that." Well, it's happening now. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. We were connected by the readers, I guess.
Yeah.
Although I mostly heard about you guys because of your new career as rock stars / white rappers.
Right, white rappers.
Is it just Matt who's in those videos, or Andrew? Are you in there too?
It's just me, although
Just Matt.
Yeah, but we are planning on doing a short little 60-second rap where we're going to attempt to have Andrew rap, right?
I could do it. I listen to J5. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. So I do want to talk about early retirement, but I want to ask, where did the name Mr. Money Mustache come from?
Well, I suspect it's sort of like Listen Money Matters, because when I was analyzing your name, I noticed it's got the same kind of catchy number of syllables,
That's
and the
true.
middle word is money, and I think you just picked something that sounds good.
But you have a
Money
mustache, I imagine, right?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Not right now. I would consider myself to not have a mustache.
Okay.
But yeah.
Are you waiting for November?
No. Well, if I am, I'd better actually get started now if I want it to look anything like my Twitter picture. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's one of those things. You pick something that sounds good, and I just think of like Magnum PI and old Western gunslingers and the seniority of the mustache, and I thought that just went really well with a financial guru.
Yeah, for sure. Why not? Like the Monopoly Man.
Oh, well, not like him. He's kind of like, a bit of an evil capitalist, and he's dorky, and he's like completely physically undeveloped. So I don't like to be related to the Monopoly Man.
You don't have a monocle. You don't rock a
Yeah.
monocle. You're not a pudgy black and white man.
Yeah. Don't connect Mr. Money Mustache to the Monopoly guy. It's
Fair
right.
enough. So for those of you who don't know, Mr. Money Mustache is the website, mrmoneymustache.com. And you, one of the things that I was surprised about, I had thought that you had started the website, and then the website is what got you into early retirement. But that actually isn't the case. You got into early retirement way before the website.
Yeah, that's true. It was like many years, like 6 years of regular, happy retirement. I thought I was just leading a normal life until I started to look around me, and I noticed, like, hey, how come all my friends aren't doing this too? They all had good jobs. Like, why is everyone still living paycheck to paycheck? So eventually, out of frustration, I started this blog. Like, look, everyone's totally mismanaging their money, and I'm just going to teach the world how it's done. So that's the idea behind Mr. Money Mustache.
Well, tell me a little bit about your early days and why you decided to retire early and how that whole thing took place.
It was kind of, for me, just a natural choice. So I grew up in this other country called Canada, and it's like a little bit less fancy than the United States. So people don't have as much money, or like they didn't when I was growing up anyway. And so then I transplanted myself to the US because of work opportunities, and I kept my Canadian spending habits, and I found that money accumulated because I didn't buy quite as many cars as everybody else and didn't go out to dinner quite as often. It turns out when you don't spend all your money and you invest it, then it tends to grow, and then eventually the returns from your investment are enough to live off. And of course, the less you need to live off, the sooner this happens. So that just happened. I felt like I was living a pretty fancy life, actually, but apparently I wasn't. And then I no longer needed to work right around age 30, just before my 31st birthday. So I quit the job and just lived off of things like investment dividends and rental house income. And now here we are, like 9 years later, and it's still going well, except now I'm writing about it, which has become almost like a job, but it's a really fun job where there's no boss.
So I just want to say, it's not like you don't go out to dinner one less time, and you're spending like everyone else. You live a nice lifestyle, but you spend like an insanely low amount.
No, that's not correct. I spend like a huge amount, but it's just slightly less ridiculous than the average rich person in this country.
Interesting.
So how much do you spend? Like how much you spend to live? It's like you, your wife, and your son.
Yeah. We have like an almost 9-year-old, and we don't really watch our spending. We don't have a budget. We just kind of spend as much as we see fit. But then we do keep track of it, and at the end of the year, add up all the bills on the credit card, and it's been adding up to about $25,000 a year. And there's a bit of cheating involved because there's no mortgage expense in that. Part of my idea of investment was paying off the house. So really, you'd have to crank that up to more like 40,000 if you want to compare apples to apples spending with a typical family with like, an average mortgage.
Yeah, I actually want to find out how you did this because all right, so you're from Canada. You went to school in Canada, right?
Yes, that's true.
And after school in Canada, what did you end up doing in the States? Like what was the opportunity that brought you over to the States?
Well, first I graduated and I worked in Canada. So I went to engineering school, software engineering.
Okay.
And then I worked a few years in that field in Canada. And then this is like in the late 90s. And then I read in all the engineering magazines like career opportunities are great in the States and you get paid more and there's lower taxes. And it's like a big brain drain and everyone's moving there. So I thought I would try it. So I just sent my resume out to a bunch of interesting sounding places and got some job interviews and took a job here. And then, it's pretty easy for people to move. If you have a good degree and a good job, it's easy to move between these two countries because they're connected through the free trade agreement. So that was fun. I'm really glad I did it. And I moved to Colorado because of the lifestyle. Seemed to match my values of like mountain bikes and outdoors and not working too hard. And that's the history of that. So,
and so you ended up, you had a job, and how long did you work at that job before you were able to you had this, you were working and you were, I'm sure, making decent money and just stashing it away, not spending it, investing it. How did you end up accumulating this wealth during that time to, say at 30 years old that I'm done, I'm retiring?
Right. Well, I didn't really keep exact track because I didn't realize I was going to become Mr. Money Mustache.
Sure.
At the time, but I kind of recreated it from my best memories at one point, making this post. I made this blog article called A Brief History of the Stash, how we saved from zero to retirement in 9 years. And it's all about all these years from like graduation and what happened and how much I earned, and then just steps through the years. And things got faster and faster as I went along because, your gains are compounding and you get better at living an efficient lifestyle and you've kind of bought all the crap you need early on. So then your spending drops. And so that's how it worked out. So, and of course I had a girlfriend, now wife, who was also on board with the program. So she was earning too. And, we didn't have our kids too early. We waited until we were after 30, which helped. Didn't have a bunch of dogs or other vacation houses or yachts. So all these things add up to, basically being able to live on less than half of what you take home. And that's the real formula for early retirement, is living on less than half your money.
Living on less than half and then doing what with the other more than half?
You invest it in whatever you want. So I would recommend index funds like Vanguard index funds, like the total stock market, US index combined with the total international fund. And the reason this is good is because you're not trading, you're not incurring like crazy losses and selling when the market goes down with everybody else. You're collecting dividends the whole while. And over time, as soon as you get past the 1 decade period, you really start to feel smart for doing that kind of investing. because you realize it's a lot better than these cowboy investing or actively managed funds or, precious metals where it just goes up and down for no reason and speculation like that.
Right.
Where did you learn all of this? Like just on your own?
Books. Yeah, it was from books. I mean, I went through engineering, so you're always encouraged to have kind of an analytical mindset and study up on facts instead of just repeating the current trend of the day. Mm-hmm. So I read a lot of books on investing as I was growing up through. As soon as I became an adult and started having money, then I was wondering what to do with it. So I read investing books, and then I realized you don't have to read a lot of investing books. You just buy index funds, and it's pretty much the best way to go anyway.
What was the book that like really spoke to you?
I have a whole list of them. It's hard. I don't even have a single one, but there is one good one. It's called The 4 Pillars of Investing by William Bernstein. It's pretty good. Or if you look up anything from John Bogle, he's like the founder of Vanguard, is another good recommendation. Or you could just read everything that Warren Buffett has ever written and all the books about him. And even though he doesn't talk so much about personal investing, he more tells his own story. Mm-hmm. The fundamentals that he illustrates through his anecdotes really help you understand what the economy is all about, like what the whole idea of human productivity, and helps turn you into a calm, long-term investor, which I think is the real way to make money in the long run.
Yeah, and I recently had a quote from John Bogle that I love, which is, instead of finding the needle in the haystack, just buy the haystack.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
And that idea of, investing in funds and the entire stock market as opposed to individual stocks or precious metals or things that go up and down and, ending up becoming a day trader for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's true. But the other thing is because I kind of focus not so much on investing because it is so simple. And I focus on how to get so much of your earnings, like a lot of your earnings, into those investments, because that's the real thing that's missing in America is everyone's got these super piddly, like 5 to 15% savings rates, and they think they're doing fine. And meanwhile, they have like a brand new $30,000 car, or they have hundreds of dollars per week in restaurant budgets and fancy coffees and all this other stuff. And there's nothing like morally wrong with that. But if you want to get ahead, you can't be doing that stuff, unless you've got a $400,000 salary where it doesn't matter. If you're in regular mortal land, you've got to get a little bit badass about optimizing your spending. And later on, you can relax because you're going to have so much more money that you won't have to be efficient for your whole life. But what I find is the habits that I picked up as a 20-year-old are still sticking with me today, and I really enjoy it. Like I still ride a bike everywhere, and I pull my groceries home in a bike trailer. Not because I can't afford a BMW 7 Series, but just because that's a better way to live for me. And I'm never going to have the Beamer now because the bike makes me happier. So it's a really great, it's a great lifestyle adjustment to make when you're young.
Yeah, and it's exercise.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. Like you got to be outside for as many hours a day as you can. And you need a few hours of hard exercise per day, like doing something. And that's totally lost on our culture. Like everyone thinks if you just do 30 minutes on the treadmill, then that's good enough. Mm-hmm. It's not, man. You got to be out like a caveman or cavewoman doing stuff all day, especially as you get older. And that's the lifestyle to aspire to in my view.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned that the investing part is easy, right? With index funds and those things, that's the easy part, although that seems to be the part that everyone focuses on because that's what makes money, quote unquote.
That's true. You're right. There's a lot of money in writing about investing, and that's probably why we read so much about it. There's not much money in telling people not to buy anything.
Right.
So that's why only retired people can do that kind of writing like me, because I don't need to.
There's no affiliate program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that. All right. So I want to go back to this, the 60% of your focus is trying to put as much money into investments as possible. When you first started out, and you said you grew up with this idea that, spending a lot of money wasn't really a thing. So it was kind of ingrained in you, right?
Yes, thankfully.
What's the biggest struggle now that you have the blog, and we'll go into that in a second, but now that you have that and you're out reaching out to listeners, what does everyone's struggle seem to be? Why is it such a hard thing to stop spending money, I don't have a good ending to that question. Like, why is it so hard to stop? Why is it so hard to stop spending money? Really,
it's got to be a cultural thing, because to me, it seems just bizarre what people are doing, and they think it's normal. Like I have this article I've been working on that's called "When Ridiculousness is Ubiquitous," and it rhymes nicely, but it's also true. Like people just think what they're doing is appropriate. Like they think it's okay to borrow money for a car, and they think it's okay to drive like 1 mile to the store and all these other little things that to me it just blows my mind. Like I'd never do it, but to the average person, it's just regular behavior because they're modeling it on other people they've seen. And if you watch TV, there's no mustachians on TV. There's no frugal people. It's all like, just regular people with brand new clothes and new cars, and no one's riding a bike on the TV shows. So you just copy what you see the other humans doing, and lo and behold, you have no money left over when you do that.
And that's interesting because I didn't assume that Canada was this place that was frugal, like it's a frugal country. Is it?
Well, it's kind of lost a little bit of its frugality during the 15 years since I left there because they've just had this massive oil boom combined with a lot of immigration of wealthy people from other countries like Hong Kong and China and stuff like that. So there's a lot of money circulating there, sloshing around. It inflated the housing market, and I think the regular hockey-playing, beard, plaid shirt Canadians have
Maple
been led
syrup
astray.
chugging, yes.
So now they all have like Hyundai Genesis bought on credit, and they're driving around, and they're wondering why they're actually, I think, in a worse personal debt position than the U.S. was at the peak of our 2008, over leveraged crisis. Right. And their houses, it's like $600,000 for crappy vinyl clad townhouses now.
Yeah.
And all these places that are much less nice than where I live now in the U.S. So they'll get their lessons someday. But we got to look back to the 70s, and my own upbringing to take inspiration from Canada. Like, my parents they never borrowed money for cars. They would always just have like these old manual transmission hatchbacks, and you just we didn't go out for dinner a lot. We did a lot of stuff at home and worked hard in the gardens and stuff. So that's the kind of roots we need to get back to as an entire society, because it's more satisfying living. That's the number one and by far the most important reason. And number two is it fixes your money situation in a breeze. Like it's just awesome how much more wealthy you end up when you do that.
So I kind of feel that people understand like that message, but maybe they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, how did you know when your end of working line was, and like how can people kind of find that light so they can see, if I do this, I only have like 5 years left?
That's true. Well, that's something that the investing books kind of taught me, I would say, because you don't automatically know how much money you need, but it turns out there's a really simple formula. You just take your spending, which you should really be keeping track of on a monthly and then an annual basis. So let's say $25,000. If you multiply that number by 25, roughly, that's how much money you need invested in order to be able to quit working forever. So if you spend $25,000 a year, you need about $625,000, if I'm remembering that number correctly, to be retired forever. If you spend $100,000 a year, you need $2.5 million invested to sustain that living style. So anyway, once I figured that out, and I figured my spending was a certain amount, I think it might have been around 25 or 30 was my guess when I was still working. And then I saved up, and my wife and I had total savings of somewhere like around 800,000 when we quit working, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Once you get into the habit and you do this for more than 5 years, it goes surprisingly quickly. So that was enough. 800,000. If you do the 4% rule, which is another way of saying the 25 thing in reverse, that's enough to generate about 32,000 of cash flow per year, and that's enough for us to live off. So we figured that's enough. Let's quit. And of course, when you quit, you don't actually never do anything again. You embark on the next stage of your life, which if you're young, it probably will involve earning money, but it won't be like, some crappy cubicle job. It'll be the job of your dreams or the hobby of your dreams. So I kind of encourage people to think retirement is not the end of work anymore. I had to redefine it. Now retirement is the end of mandatory work.
And that's kind of where I wanted to go, because I know there's a lot of people, they work till 60, for quote unquote the man, and then it's like they don't even know what to do because they just have too much time. So like you're afraid you're going to retire and have nothing. Like, how did you handle that? Like, did you have a plan of what you're going to do when you retired?
I sure did. And it's kind of a slippery slope because the longer you work in a job, humans are really habit-bound creatures, right? So if you are like the paper pusher for like the XYZ government department and you do it from age 25 to 65, you're going to burn out your brain and lose a lot of your other interests. So then when you quit that job, you really might have nothing to do other than go play bingo and knit some scarves or something. Now, the younger you are, and I don't want to be ageist because a lot of older people maintain their creative spark as well, but
Yeah.
to a certain extent, I was young and I was still in the learning stage of my life. So I was excited to quit my regular software job and just get on with the next stuff. And for me, I started a house building company right after, quote, retiring. And because I was always interested in construction, and I thought, well, not construction, but like fine carpentry and
Yeah.
learning stuff and designing beautiful houses.
That's your engineering brain, right?
Yeah, and I'd always worked on my own houses and built stuff since I was a kid. So I thought,
Cool.
this is the ideal, pastime. Let's do that. So I started this little company, built some custom houses, but it was too stressful because I had a young baby who had just been born at the time. So I shut that company down. It was experiment number one. And then I moved into much more casual stuff, and that's really agreed with me. And, I just build things in my free time, and I got into writing, and parenting is a huge part of my job right now. I feel like
Yeah.
parenting is like a 10 to 12 hour a day job. So I'm plenty busy. So yeah, I don't know how I could possibly fit in a actual job in this life.
Right. And as a software engineer, do you use any technology to manage your money? Like, you have any favorites?
I do. I kind of use technology to manage everything and to make up for my inadequate brain. So I have everything as automated as I can. So
Cool.
I'm still interested in software and making computers do work for me. I just set everything to automatic. So most of my stock money is in Vanguard. So
Yeah.
it's just set to automatically reinvest dividends. And then I just log in and keep the portfolio sort of in balance. Very rarely, like once or twice a year, which would just mean, if you have too many domestic stocks, then I would want a bit more international or whatever. That's very passive, though. I don't mess with that much. I just like all my bills to be automatically paid, so I can't accidentally pay the credit card bill off late.
Right.
And I like, for rental houses, I only have one now, but I like that automatically deposited from the tenant into the account, and that works out. So that's the extent of my technology.
What about budget?
I don't do budgets. I've never ever followed any kind of budget. For us, it's we're kind of weird in that way. We just spend according to our values. So like every
Right.
time you're about to buy something, you think, is this really the right purchase for me? You can decide yes or no. Quite often it's no. Like if you're in Target and there's an impulse purchase
Sure.
looking at you, you just say, well, I didn't come here to buy this thing, so I'm going to just sit in the back of my mind. And next time I'm at Target, which will probably be in 6 months, chances are I will have forgotten about it.
Yeah.
That's my idea of budgeting, is just personal questioning at the time of purchase.
So I think a lot of people understand that, like to go into Target, oh, and yeah, and I just won't buy the thing. But I think far fewer people actually don't, like, far fewer people walk out with nothing. How do you kind of change that? How do you change that in other people, or how do you change that in yourself?
I'm not sure if I can, but that's kind of what the blog is designed to do. So it works on some people. And that is, number one, you got to realize what money is for. So money is not for buying yourself stuff. Money is for freedom. So any stuff you buy is a direct subtraction from your freedom. And then suddenly everything's getting weighed against, well, I'm going to have to work longer and commute more to work and put up with annoying coworkers just to have this extra end table for my couch or whatever. And suddenly when you have this competition of what your money can be used for, it becomes a lot easier to save it, because saving becomes fun and powerful instead of sad and compromising. That's number one. And number two is embracing hardship is a big thing. Like a lot of people run from anything uncomfortable, like, oh, I can't ride my bike. It's like 30 degrees outside. That would be terrible.
Right.
And I encourage people to think like, anytime you do something that's challenging, that's a personal triumph. And that's really that's where the happiness in life comes from, is triumphing over adversity. So just that little subtle shift where you suddenly do things because they're hard instead of avoiding them because they're hard, and realizing that's what makes you happy, that's great, because that saves you a ton of money. It keeps you busy. Suddenly you don't have time to get like the opera house season pass tickets or anything else because you're busy doing harder stuff like building yourself a fence in 100-degree heat or learning to maintain your car or learning to bike to work and all this other stuff that doesn't really cost anything.
So I'm an engineer as well, and engineers get paid pretty well, and so the people that I kind of know, and I'm sure you knew similar people, I tell them these things, and I've also fallen victim to it. But I'd ask you, what about vacations? Why don't you guys go to Spain and do like a whole thing? Like, how do you? Yeah. Also, I don't know how to end that question.
This is great.
I do. I have traveled a lot, and back in our working years before the kid, my wife and I traveled a lot. Australia, and New Zealand, and Italy, and these other places. So there's traveling is not necessarily all that expensive. You just got to shop for it in the same way that you would shop for anything else. I think it gets more expensive if you're always doing it, like the compulsive travel in Colorado, for example. A lot of people go to the mountains every single weekend. And then they'll rent a place and they'll drive 200 miles back and forth. And they think that like, oh yeah, that's just a few bucks here and there. But that adds up to probably $12,000 a year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they don't notice it. And then they think, oh, if only I could afford like a $1,200 all-inclusive package to Cancun in the winter. Man, travel's so expensive, without realizing they're spending 10 times more on just their local stuff. And a lot of people fly around the country for weddings, even for people they don't like, and spend $1,000 a pop. You don't have to do that. You can concentrate on the travel that really means something to you. I still travel a lot now, but it tends to be.
I'm getting this like interesting vibe where you're not saying like don't go to Italy and have gelato. You're saying approach it differently and try and find the deal and not just like the splurge.
Right. Find the deal and make sure that you balance it in all your other times. Like there was a lot of times I could have gone on trips, but I didn't have time because I valued the other things.
Else,
like,
yeah.
oh, I got a camping trip planned with my friends, so I don't have time to go to Italy. And also guess which one costs less.
Right.
And I'm working on my house, for example. This year I spent the whole winter rebuilding this house, an old 1950s house, to become kind of a beautiful modern one, which I'm now speaking to you from my new office.
Nice.
And I could have gone to a lot of foreign destinations over the winter, but I didn't have time because I was busy producing something of value, which was really fun to do as well. I was working with my friends, and I was out in the sun all day and slinging lumber. And so it's kind of neat. If you make a list of what's best for you and what you would enjoy most and prioritize it and then sort it in order of cost as well.
Yeah.
And then just start picking according to that, you'll find you don't really have time to spend much money.
I wanted to get your take on this tiny house movement. Is that something that's in your future?
Well, I'm a bit of a house slut,
right?
In the sense that I like a luxurious dwelling.
Okay.
And, so that's one of my weaknesses. I always define luxury as a weakness. I don't think it sounds like, what's that?
I love house slut. I don't know why.
So when people see my house, they're like, oh, that's not Mustachian. Like,
right.
My mustache has gone soft. That thing looks like a design magazine. And, we're allowed to have our weaknesses as long as we can afford them.
Yeah.
My house is smaller. Like, I just downsized from a 2,600 square foot house to like a 1,500 square foot house, which is still like huge and fairly, for 3 people, that's more than what most of the world gets to live in. Mm-hmm. I'm not really down with the idea of living in like a 200 square foot house like some people do.
Right.
But I think it's awesome when they do. And
they're building it themselves. A lot of them are. Yeah.
And if you're single, that's a really great thing to do. And if you're younger or if you're older and badass, or maybe your kids have grown up, or maybe some people do it even with kids. And I
that's crazy.
Completely idolize those people. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So tiny houses are a wonderful development, and I'm glad they're catching on. And I've actually got a date with a girl in San Diego to help her build a tiny house so she can move out of her regular house and into her own backyard and live in a tiny house and rent out her main house. So the idea is my wife and son, we would come and stay in our guest quarters, and we'd build this tiny house and then profile it on the blog, because it's actually pretty fast to build a tiny house if you have the full skills and tools, because it's such a small space. Mm-hmm. But it's wonderful. We should all be thinking about smaller dwellings and quality over quantity. And I should too. So I took one step in that direction now, but we'll see. I might be able to man up over the years and live in even less in the future.
Yeah, we'll see. I have one question about. Was it hard to get your wife on board with this whole early retirement thing? Was she just like you in that sense, or did you have to take some convincing?
I would say there's a little bit of convincing.
Okay.
She wasn't raised in the total, like lawyer's daughter pampering kind of way. But on the other hand, she had adopted the norms of our culture. So when she came and got her first adult job, as a software person, she was making better money. And it naturally just started to go to like the best in athletic clothing and brand new books from Amazon and, dinner, lunches out with the coworkers at work every day. Totally fine stuff. But when she added it up, she realized like, wow, this is like $12,000 a year of stuff that's not really getting me anywhere. And as she did that for a couple of years, and then we kind of mutually realized, hey, well, maybe we should do early retirement instead, especially if we're going to have kids in the future. And that got her pretty motivated. She's like, wow, I don't have to work while I have kids. And I get to have my husband home too. If we just like cut out some lattes and books and athletic clothing, well, that sounds good to me.
Huh.
So I think sharing the dream of freedom and child raising is often good if there's like a couple trying to get on board with the same things. And also you have to study a little bit of happiness and realize like the stuff is really not making you happy. So you're not making any sacrifice by giving up pretty much anything beyond food and water and shelter. Those are the real things. Other than that, if you're looking for happiness, you should look towards friends and family rather than stuff and handbags and expensive mountain bikes and stuff.
So I totally resonate with that, by the way. And just, I want to spend time with, my wife and stuff like that. And I'm just curious because I know you live in Colorado and it's at least very cheap there compared to where I live, New York City. And I know that you've kind of talked on this stuff, but I want to hear your thoughts. You say on one hand, like you shouldn't live so far away from work. Like that is also crazy because of commute costs and whatever. How would you handle something like the city where I live in a very small place with my wife? It is definitely not extravagant by any means, but it is just expensive to be here.
That's true. Well, the rent is expensive in New York, but a lot of the other stuff is not expensive, not any more than the rest of the country because we have such an amazing trade network in this country. So like your groceries, you can still find a Costco and you can still find local like ethnic kind of stores. So it's the same price to eat in New York as everywhere else. But of course, everyone chooses to go out and spend $35,000 on dinners per year just because that's the culture there. So there's a lot of people that read my blog that live in New York and Manhattan, and they come back with these spending reports that are just barely more than what someone would spend anywhere else, like even in a cheap place like Omaha. I'm kind of in a middle of the road cost of living place because I'm right next to Boulder, which is like venture capital mini San Francisco deal. So we don't have the super cheap housing. But then again, just separate housing from the rest of cost of living because really the United States is an incredibly cheap place to live compared to almost any other developed country. And I get these reports from Europe all the time. They're like, oh, I'm so jealous. and then just get innovative on your housing if you want. Like you can rent an apartment or you can buy a multiplex in Brooklyn and then rent out everything else except for your unit and then do renovations. And a lot of people I know there live for free or make a huge cash flow profit on living. So they have cheaper living than me effectively. So it's all about making special arrangements, hack your own system if you want to live there. And also you don't have to live there. That's one of my secrets is you don't have to live in New York. You can actually move anywhere you want.
Yeah, if you can work from anywhere.
Yes, and you can generally because just get a new job, especially in tech. You can work. There's oodles of jobs that'll hire you regardless of where you are. And if you are going to be in New York, make sure there's a reason. If you have strong family ties, that's a good reason. If you're just in New York because you have like an $80,000 a year job and that's it, that's not a reason. New York is a place to stay when you're making $500,000. If you're going to make 80, you might as well live in Omaha or any other low-cost place, or you can pick a tropical location, like somewhere in Florida or somewhere in the mountains.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you just don't need New York as a place. It's expensive because there's a lot of high incomes there. So
Yeah.
stay if you can get one. Otherwise, go somewhere else.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about studying happiness, right? And you mentioned friends. And one of the struggles that I have is with friendship. And with friendship comes peer pressure and peer pressure spending. How do you avoid that and having a contentious relationship with a friend who, say wants to go out and, drink a shitload of nice beers and like eat frog wall and all these, fancy things? How do you avoid letting someone down or, feeling like I don't want to hang out with this guy because he's being cheap or frugal? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
And because you can slowly prune and adapt your friends. That's one option, because over time, friends fade in and out. There's always new ones and there's always old ones, and sometimes older ones drift away. And if you, if you enjoy, suddenly you might find yourself enjoying the company of people who aren't just into sitting at restaurants eating, and you might enjoy people who are like hikers instead or cyclists.
Yeah.
That's what's happened to me. I kind of drifted away from the consumery friends. Not that I don't like them, but we just don't have as much in common to do, because they're like, hey, let's go do $100 happy hour. And I'm like, I kind of wanted to go camping this weekend,
Right.
Can't we get packed up early and go? And just stuff like that. But the other thing you can do, even with your existing friends, is you can become the boss. So it turns out there's a secret with humans where we are too many, what's the old slogan? Too many Indians and too many chiefs.
Too many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah, or too many Indians and not enough chiefs.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, if you step up to a leadership position and tell your friends what you're doing, you're going to find everyone listens to you because very few people are willing to take the initiative. So you could say, guess what, guys? Dinner's at my house. We're going to do like a do-it-yourself sushi party, which turns out is way more fun than going out for sushi.
Yeah.
Or we can you can invent all kinds of stuff and you become the social organizer. Just, little do they know, they start doing healthier stuff that's not as expensive. And then suddenly everyone's following you. You end up with more friends because social leaders are the ones that get all the friends. And that's kind of what you could even say that my own hobby of blogging has caused this. So now I command a legion of hundreds of thousands or maybe even millions of people, and I tell them what's fun to do. And, biking is fun and making your own food. And suddenly there's lots of people to draw from. And there's like 100 of them coming over to our house later this week, to a public park near my house.
Oh, wow.
To share in these values, It's like
that's awesome.
There's plenty of people.
I want to move to Colorado.
Yes, and that's the other thing is I encourage people to gather. So I've informally designated Longmont, Colorado as the future badass utopia capital of the United States, and all people who are into a natural lifestyle and outdoorsy and helping each other out and chuckling about our fortunate lives together and sharing beers on front porches should move here right now, and I will help you, and then we'll all be friends instantly. So that's already happening to a certain degree. There's a bunch of people who have already moved here.
Oh my! I actually might. I was actually thinking about coming out there for the winter.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Well, it's a Boulder, actually. Yeah.
That sounds good. Well, we'll hook up once you're here, and the badass utopia will spread once again. And see, notice how I'm becoming the boss here. I'm telling people, I'm telling you what to do, and suddenly you're excited to do it. You can follow this model yourself.
Oh man.
So we have a. I mean, again, just kind of back to the engineer thing, because we were lucky in that we make a lot of money. We have a lot of people in our audience who do not make a lot of money. So getting up to $800,000 because they don't spend that much, they're going to say, well, that can never happen to me. What do you say to people who maybe don't make as much? Like, are they forsaken now?
No, definitely not. In fact, I think it's all about perspective. Like you just said, I make a lot of money. That's the right perspective to have, because there's a lot of people sitting right next to you in New York that think, man, that guy doesn't make anything. I don't see how he could even pay for his nannies with that kind of income.
Right.
And we all make a lot of money in this country. And that's the first thing to think about. I make a lot of money is what you say. And holy shit, I can make even more money just with all these opportunities that are around me. So that tends to happen over time too. Mm-hmm. And then if you feel really grateful for everything that you do have, like you can get a complete meal of healthy ingredients from the grocery store for like $1 or $2. anywhere in the country, that means we're all incredibly rich compared to the cost of our true needs. So start with that attitude and then build it from there. So I retired with $800,000. That's too much. That was based on expecting to spend $32,000 a year, which is a super gluttonous, crazy lifestyle with like cars and jet travel and all this other stuff. You don't need that to be happy. Like you should start with lower expectations. And if you focus on happiness, you can really spend a lot less than that. And you might surprise yourself and suddenly realize that you do have the 800,000. You're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll spend a little bit more. But you just got to start with realizing you need nothing. You really need nothing, and everything you have is more than you need already. And then just build it up from there.
So you had said, we're in this country and we have like all these awesome opportunities around us. And I know from reading your blog and just us talking, like you've always been like a kind of, for lack of a better term, side hustle guy. Like, did you have some side things before you retired? Do you think that everyone should kind of have a side thing so they could step away from, the day-to-day grind?
And supplement their income to make it a little bit faster?
I don't think you need that. No. I wasn't really planning to make money after retirement based on my original savings plan. Mm-hmm. It's just, it turns out that I'm only happy when I'm accomplishing something. So I tend to always work on something. I like to learn and do things that are challenging throughout the day. And sometimes you get paid for doing that kind of stuff. So I think everybody should have a plan for after work. It doesn't have to be money making, but that's a nice shortcut if you're in one of these lower income groups like Andrew talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Let's say you make $25,000 a year and you still want to, quote, retire early. Well, maybe you won't be retiring off a giant chunk of assets. Maybe you'll just be quitting your crappy job at the department store and having a little bit of income from investments, or maybe you have a rental house or a duplex that you share with other people. And you'll start your side business, which maybe brings in like $5,000 a year or something small. You can go a lot sooner into freedom if you have a little bit of savings and a little bit of side hustle income. So it's really a balance, but everyone's got to do something if you retire early. You can't just retire early and then go straight to the wheelchair and the RV and stuff like that.
Right.
It's just not a good plan.
No. And I want to talk about the site. So, what you had mentioned that you saw this. Your friends and people around you were asking you a lot of questions about how you did it, and then you decided to make the site. Is that what happened?
More or less, yeah. I wanted to. It wasn't for my friends, but it was addressed to society in general, like an open letter to society. That was the basic thing.
Now, do you make money from the site now? How long? I mean, you've had it for a couple of years now.
Yeah, it's over 3 years old now, and unexpectedly, it does make quite a bit of money now. And I haven't used that to increase my spending at all. But basically, if anything, I've used it to decrease my spending because now I feel more comfortable. Like, I have more of a cushion, and I want to use it for projects related to the blog, and I have been, as well as the upkeep of the blog itself. But yeah, that's one of my happy, unexpected stories that I like to joke about on the blog. It's like, shit, even just writing about not working suddenly earns money.
Yeah. And how do you earn money from it?
It's the usual kind of blog stuff. So you have affiliate programs. Like I have a page, it's called the recommendations page. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down all the products and stuff that I use because people are always asking me anyway. And then some of those companies will pay you commissions as well.
Right.
So I looked up those ones, joined their affiliate programs, and then wherever there's an option, like Republic Wireless is one, and that's my mobile phone company. Mm-hmm. I was excited about that company long before I had even heard from them in person. And I was like, yeah, Republic Wireless, I'm going to use that. Then they called me because they knew about the blog and like, hey, do you want to be one of our affiliates? And we'll pay you like, I don't know, $20 whenever somebody signs up for the service. And I said, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect for my values because, the blog can earn money even while I just do what I would have done anyway.
Right.
So that's my rule, that's my general guideline for making money on the blog is I'm not allowed to change. I'm not allowed to endorse stuff that I don't already use, but
right.
If I do use something, then I'm allowed to endorse it and accept money. It's not pure like Ralph Nader or Consumer Reports, but it's good enough for me. It matches what I feel is right.
Yeah. And you just recently changed the design. I think
That's true.
It looks awesome. What made you do that?
It was just a side effect of the blog getting bigger. I realized that the old beginner blog, where it's just a reverse chronology like list of posts,
Yeah.
wasn't quite right for all the new people. And I looked at the stats, and there's like thousands of new people showing up every day. And then if they show up and just see whatever I happen to write about most recently, that's not necessarily what you want your new readers to see.
Right.
So there's a front page now, which has got like what I call the Triple M classics and featured posts, which are sort of stuff that's designed to be useful to someone who's never been there before and hopefully interesting enough to encourage them to read more. And then there's also like, if you go to moneymustache.com/blog, then that's the old style. And that's what the existing readers prefer because they've already read everything else and they just
Right.
want to see what's new.
Now, besides the blog, do you have any cool projects that you're doing right now or that are coming up in your future that you want to?
It's kind of blog related.
Yeah?
The blog has taken over a bit of my life because it's become so fun. So I've shut down a little bit of my other stuff that I used to be into. Like I don't do professional carpentry work anymore. I just work on my own house.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I can free up more time to write on the blog. I'm going to write a book related to the blog.
Cool.
During the next year. And part of that is I'm going to sell my rental house so I don't have to think about that. I'm a really wimpy kind of single tasker in my life. If I have stuff planned or if I have outstanding obligations, they consume all my limited brain power, so I can't do anything new. So I have to shut down other stuff to focus on new stuff, and that's kind of the stage I'm in right now. But the blog is still interesting. Like it encourages me to do stuff. So I'm doing science experiments related to super low home energy consumption, for example, and fitness and various things related to social change. And, I just do experiments and write about it on the blog. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Nothing too specific right now. There's a few secret ones, but they'll just come out whenever I get around to writing about them.
When you feel the passion surge in you, yeah.
Oh, like one of them's a documentary. I'm going to go on a cross U.S. Bicycle kind of extravaganza where I show up in different cities and people who claim that their city is not bike friendly and you can't bike to work there. I'm going to show up with bikes at their house and then say, "We're biking to work today, sucker, get on!" and then
That's
show
awesome.
them, like biking in Houston and all this other stuff where people say that you have to have a car, and it's just totally wrong. The whole United States is totally fine for biking already, and if we all start biking, it's going to get way more friendly overnight. So that's one of my missions that's one of my side projects.
Yeah, and
I got a
awesome.
filmmaker. Yeah, I got a filmmaker on board,
Cool.
and we're going to do this tour, but I just have to free up a bit of time because I've been traveling too much through the summer. So taking a break before the documentary begins.
Yeah. I guess I have to mention, Andrew loves this video. It's called, you ever see Motherfucking Bike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That is pretty funny.
He loves that.
I found it from you. Yeah, I
okay.
it everywhere. Yeah.
He
The funny
posts
part
it
is-
everywhere.
I think it's making fun of bikes.
A little bit, yeah.
Because it's like talking about us being rude and
Right.
like blocking the elevator and giving the finger to cars for no reason. But it's just a nice little hip hop track, and
That's fun.
it's catchy. So I still forward it around.
Cool. So I to kind of wrap things up, and I this has been enlightening to say the least. But what do you think your like major piece of advice is to your listener or your readers or whoever you talk to on a daily basis? What's your big, advice for them?
Well, the long-term people would have different advice because they already know everything I'm going to say. And
Yeah.
for those people, I'd just say, yeah, let's hang out or let's keep doing what we're doing. But for new people, I would say change your entire perspective on life and learn about happiness itself and start embracing hardship and learning about your own psychology and the human animal in general. Get
Yeah.
the bigger picture, zoom out of the department store and the shopping bag and the fancy car and just start learning about like, what are you anyway? Like, what are you, this chunk of meat on this planet, and how did you get here? And what's the purpose of you being alive? Start going back from those roots, and then that's going to help you reevaluate what it really means. Like, what's your real goal in life?
What it means
And,
to be human.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do if you want to completely fix your life and have control over your money and your spending and stuff. You got to just throw out the whole package of consumer junk and get some deeper and more scientific understanding of of what's really going on here.
Yeah, that really interests me. Do you have I've watched documentaries on Netflix, like there's a documentary called Happy, which I found pretty interesting, and I actually just recently watched Man on Wire, which was amazing. Which just talks about, this guy just had a passion his whole life, and it didn't matter what it took to do it. He just had to do it. And is there any resources or things that people can look at to study happiness or just human nature in general?
Yeah, I think you should. You should study happiness and human nature. One of them is called The Art of Happiness, which is a collaboration between a U.S. Psychologist and the Dalai Lama himself. That's a pretty neat thing. It's studying happiness from a very practical version of Buddhism, and so that's cool. That's like looking at your own feelings inside. But I also like to think of the outside picture. Like, instead of learning about culture and society, learn more about like science and evolution, and really understand like, whoa, what are humans anyway, instead of like, what is this group of humans doing, or what's that group of humans doing. That's too much like he said, she said. I like to learn about the whole thing, like how do atoms get formed in the compressed centers of stars, and how does that result in planets forming, and how does life form out of that. And understanding this big picture is really fascinating. And then it makes you say like, holy shit, I guess I don't need that Gucci handbag after all. Like, that just seems so shallow and tiny compared to what's really going on. So like, study the whole universe and understand, just ignore. That's why I don't watch the news.
Me neither.
And I don't like study what's happening in this or that political battle of the day. Like, that's just way too small
potatoes,
and temporary. You gotta, unless you're actually in that field and you're like a political advisor, you got a bigger job until you're like, up with the big guns of science. You might as well learn about the big picture, and then you can, engage your little side hobbies of being interested in golf or politics too. But start with the big picture.
And I think a good resource for that would be watching Cosmos.
Oh yes, I was just going to say that. Cosmos is brand new. One of the most interesting, most graphically beautiful summaries
amazing
of everything. And the Neil deGrasse guy, I really love that guy. He's like fun to watch.
Yep.
You could tell he's like a science nerd who just got thrown into TV.
Yep.
But you can see he's really genuine. He's not plasticky at all.
Yeah, and it's the guy that made Family Guy. He's like the producer of that show. And
really?
Yeah. Step too far. And the wife of Carl Sagan is also one of the writers on the show. So it's like the original Cosmos has a lot to do with it, because it was an old PBS thing. And that show is now on Netflix. It got put on Netflix pretty quickly because it is mind-blowing. And if you want to feel small, you feel real small when you watch that show.
Yeah, I love it.
Which is good. It's a good perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, with each one that comes out, we just get it as soon as possible. Everybody snuggles in, the three of us, with like the best screen and the best sound, and just absorb every pixel of that show because it's really good.
It is really good. And so besides, you have MrMoneyMustache.com. Where else can people find you?
That's the only place. I don't have any stuff for sale, and unless you live in Longmont and you stop by my house, I'm not really out there too much.
And you're on social media, right?
Oh yes, that's true. I have a Twitter account.
Cool.
Under Mr. Money Mustache, and there's a Money Mustache Facebook page. But those are just kind of little funny appendages where I try to get people to go to the blog, which is where the real action is.
Right. Cool. So that's awesome, man. I really appreciate this chat.
Well, thanks a lot. It was certainly fun, and good luck with your own Listen Money Matters.
Yeah.
I think it's got a catchy enough name that it's going to go big.
It's got a good amount of syllables. The podcast is doing well. So we're getting out there being a little brash and, trying to be a badass.
That's good. Well, I wish you the best, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Yeah,
Real
definitely. Couple weeks we'll be in FinCon together.
Yes, it's true.
Perfect. And if you guys got questions for the show, at least you can email us in and listenmoneymatters@gmail.com. And real quick, if you like the show, of course, go on iTunes and subscribe. That's what we need you to do. If you like the show, get it. We do one every single day, 7 days a week, and you will get it directly into your phone or wherever you listen to podcasts, even Stitcher as well. And please leave a review if you can. We have a review that I want to read real quick. It's a short one from WB Bade or WBB Aid. Who knows? All the usernames are super weird, but that's cool. Mine's Knobskis, so I commiserate. And it's from the United States, and it's 5 stars. Very informative, great ideas. As a recent graduate preparing to enter the investment world, these guys have been instrumental in setting a baseline for learning. Very informative, funny, and filled with great ideas. So thank you for that. Amazing, short, but amazing review. And we love reading them at the end of the show. And guys, you can check out our website, listedmoneymatters.com, and we have a toolbox, much like the Mr. Money Mustache resources page, where we give out all of our things and tools and products that we use personally, and that's found at listedmoneymatters.com/toolbox. So that's it. Mr. Money Mustache, Pete, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Yes, thank you, Sue.
All right, thanks again, guys, and we look forward to the next episode. So later.
Later, man.